Logan Hayes stood at the edge of the campus lawn, the crisp, bolder air brushing against his face as he clutched his diploma in civil engineering. 4 years of long nights, grueling calculations, and endless projects had led him to this moment, and he felt a surge of both pride and nervous anticipation. While his friends celebrated with local parties and family dinners, Logan's thoughts were already elsewhere. He had a dream that stretched far beyond the Rocky Mountains, a vision of skyscrapers and bridges, of concrete and steel rising under his supervision. Chicago, with its sprawling skyline and reputation as a hub for ambitious engineers, beckoned like a siren he could not resist. His parents hugged him tightly at the airport, their eyes filled with a mixture of pride and worry. "Take care of yourself, Logan," his mother whispered, brushing a hand over his cheek. "The city can be unforgiving." His father clasped his shoulder firmly. "Stay true to your values, son. Hard work and honesty will always guide you through." Logan smiled, though a flutter of anxiety tightened in his stomach. He had little more than a suitcase of belongings, his diploma, and a heart full of hope. The flight to Chicago would be the first step toward a future he had imagined countless times in the quiet corners of his dorm room. As the plane descended into O'Hare International Airport, Logan's heart pounded in anticipation. The city stretched beneath him, a sprawling mass of lights, highways, and towers. He had read about Chicago's working-class neighborhoods, its thriving business districts, and the competitive nature of its professional world. But seeing it from above, the city's scale and energy felt overwhelming. He reminded himself that ambition alone would not be enough. He would need perseverance, resilience, and the courage to face whatever challenges lay ahead. His mind raced with plans, from networking to applying for trainee positions, from learning the ins and outs of construction firms to proving himself on his own merits. For Logan, Chicago was more than a city. It was a proving ground. As the taxi turned onto a narrow street lined with brick apartment buildings, Logan's pulse quickened. Here was the address his cousin had given him, a modest building that promised temporary shelter and a semblance of security. He paid the driver and took a deep breath, hoping that the first chapter of his life in Chicago would be a smooth one. Little did he know, the city had a different plan, one that would test not just his skills as an engineer, but the very core of his character. Yet amidst the unknown, Logan felt a surge of optimism. He was ready to chase his dream, no matter the obstacles, believing that dedication and integrity would guide his path.
Logan approached the building, his suitcase thudding softly against the cracked sidewalk. The neighborhood of Pilsen buzzed with life. Children played on stoops, neighbors chatted across fences, and the aroma of home-cooked meals drifted from open windows. He felt a mixture of excitement and relief, certain that the first night in his cousin's apartment would offer a warm welcome. He fumbled with his keys, inserted them into the lock, and swung the door open, only to be met with an eerie emptiness. The apartment was silent, dusty, and devoid of any personal belongings. His heart sank as he searched for a note or clue, anything to explain why the apartment seemed abandoned. He found only a single utility bill dated several years ago, and realized with mounting dread that his cousin had moved out long before Logan's arrival. Panic surged through him as he considered his options. He had no other contacts in the city, very little money, and the night was approaching. The comforting warmth of familiarity and family, which he had expected, was gone, leaving him alone in an unfamiliar place that offered neither shelter nor solace. Logan stepped back onto the street, suitcase in hand, feeling the cold October wind bite at his cheeks. The realization hit him with full force. The city was not the friendly, welcoming place he had imagined. Chicago's streets, so alive with movement and chatter, now seemed indifferent, even hostile. He wandered aimlessly, searching for a place to stay. But the thought of spending the night on the streets filled him with dread. Every closed door and shuttered window was a reminder of his vulnerability. Yet he refused to let fear dominate him. Survival, he reminded himself, required both quick thinking and courage. Hours passed as Logan roamed the streets of Pilsen, hoping for a miracle. Most shops were closed, their neon signs flickering in the cold night air. He considered cheap motels, but the prices were far beyond what he could afford. Hunger gnawed his stomach, and exhaustion weighed heavily on his limbs. With no other option, Logan found himself drawn to a nearby church, its doors wide open and warm lights spilling onto the sidewalk. Inside, the scent of incense and the faint sound of a choir rehearsal comforted him, offering a temporary sanctuary from the harsh reality outside. As he settled into a quiet corner of the church, Logan reflected on the fragility of his plans. His journey had begun with such hope, yet in a matter of hours, he was faced with the harsh truth of the city. Chicago demanded more than dreams. It demanded resilience, resourcefulness, and an acceptance that life often took unexpected turns. Logan felt a pang of loneliness, but he also recognized a flicker of determination. He would not let this setback define him. The city might challenge him, but it would not break him. It was during this moment of quiet reflection that Logan met Jesse, a street musician with a calm and philosophical demeanor. Jesse noticed Logan's tired eyes and offered a friendly smile, striking up a conversation that quickly turned into an unexpected friendship. Jesse spoke of the city with both affection and realism, sharing stories of its hardships and hidden kindnesses. When Logan confessed his predicament, Jesse did not judge or dismiss him. Instead, he offered Logan a place to stay, a temporary refuge amidst the chaos. For the first time that night, Logan felt a glimmer of hope, realizing that even in a vast and indifferent city, human connection could provide both comfort and direction. By the time Logan followed Jesse to his modest apartment, a sense of relief replaced his earlier despair. The city still loomed large, full of unknown challenges and fierce competition, but he had taken the first step in navigating it. Surrounded by the faint strum of Jesse's guitar and the warmth of a friendly presence, Logan understood that dreams alone were not enough. He would need perseverance, humility, and the support of those willing to see his potential. And for the first time since arriving in Chicago, Logan felt a spark of optimism, knowing that tomorrow could mark the beginning of a new chapter in his life.
While Logan's connection with Rachel was blossoming, the professional world of Whitman Construction was far from stagnant. One crisp autumn evening, Logan was asked to attend a gala event organized by the firm, a gathering that showcased the company's achievements and brought together clients, contractors, and social influencers. It was at this event that he first met Madison Whitman, the company owner's daughter. She entered the room with the poise and confidence of someone accustomed to being at the center of attention, her presence commanding admiration from the assembled guests. Madison's glamour and sophistication were immediately apparent. She was impeccably dressed, her laughter light but captivating, and her conversation effortless, drawing people into her orbit. Logan, initially overwhelmed by the opulence, couldn't help but notice how effortlessly she navigated the crowd, exchanging pleasantries with executives and influencers alike. There was an allure to Madison, a magnetism that made even the most confident individuals pause. When she turned her attention to Logan, her interest seemed genuine, tinged with curiosity about the young engineer whose reputation had begun to grow within the firm. Throughout the evening, Madison found reasons to include Logan in conversations, introducing him to influential figures and explaining the finer points of business and social etiquette. She spoke of luxury developments, high-profile projects, and the prestige of working in Chicago's elite circles. Logan, though polite and attentive, remained aware of Rachel's guidance and the values that had brought him this far. Yet he could not deny the intoxicating pull of Madison's world, lavish parties, exclusive events, and the attention of Chicago's social elite. It was a world that promised excitement, influence, and a lifestyle far removed from the modest beginnings of his journey. Madison began to pursue Logan, inviting him to private events and offering to introduce him to her social circle. She was charming, assertive, and unapologetically ambitious, qualities that contrasted sharply with Rachel's quiet steadiness. Logan appreciated her friendliness and intelligence, but he remained cautious, aware that his loyalty to Rachel and his commitment to his work should not be compromised by fleeting glamour. Madison, however, persisted, sensing his potential as both a professional and a companion in her world of privilege. She seemed captivated by his earnestness and integrity, qualities she found rare in her social environment. As weeks went by, Madison's presence became a recurring element in Logan's life. Invitations to upscale parties and networking events arrived regularly, each one more extravagant than the last. While Logan occasionally attended to maintain professional appearances, he never allowed himself to be swept entirely into Madison's orbit. He noticed, though, the subtle effect she had on those around him, her ability to open doors, to influence decisions, and to create opportunities simply through charm and presence. Logan recognized the potential career benefits, yet he also understood that his heart remained aligned with Rachel, who had been a constant source of genuine support and guidance. Despite the temptation, Logan remained grounded. His friendship with Rachel continued to deepen, and the contrast between her quiet sincerity and Madison's dazzling allure became increasingly apparent. Logan began to understand that success and recognition were important, but not at the cost of personal integrity or emotional truth. Madison's world was tempting, filled with excitement and social prestige, but it lacked the substance and authenticity he found in Rachel. Each encounter with Madison reinforced Logan's clarity about what truly mattered to him: loyalty, trust, and a love built on shared values. By the end of the season, Logan had navigated this complex social dynamic with cautious diplomacy. He maintained professional courtesy and polite engagement with Madison, while ensuring that his emotional priorities were not compromised. Rachel, though unaware of the full extent of Madison's attentions, sensed the subtle tension in Logan's demeanor and grew closer to him, providing support and guidance. Logan's experiences with Madison taught him valuable lessons about ambition, temptation, and the choices that define a person, not merely in work, but in life and love. Even as Madison's allure lingered in his mind, Logan found his resolve strengthening. He understood that the glittering world of wealth and high society could offer temporary excitement, but it could not replace the deep, steady connection he shared with Rachel. This chapter of his life highlighted the contrasts between temptation and loyalty, ambition and authenticity, and the city's capacity to test both personal and professional convictions. Logan's heart and values remained firmly aligned, laying the groundwork for the trials, challenges, and eventual triumphs that lay ahead.
The church doors creaked softly as Logan stepped inside, the warm glow from the stained glass windows illuminating the quiet sanctuary. He was exhausted, his body aching from dragging his suitcase across the city streets, and his mind was heavy with anxiety. The pews, empty and welcoming, offered a temporary refuge from the chill outside. Logan sank onto one, the wood hard but comforting in its permanence. For the first time since arriving in Chicago, he allowed himself to breathe, letting the silence of the church soothe his frayed nerves. He knew the night would be long, and though uncertainty gnawed at him, the serenity of the space brought a small measure of calm. As he sat there, Logan became aware of soft notes drifting through the air. A guitar strummed gently in the corner, and a low, melodic hum accompanied it. He turned to see a man, perhaps in his late 20s, with shaggy hair and a worn jacket, plucking at the strings of his instrument. There was an ease to the musician's movements, a rhythm that seemed to mirror the heartbeat of the city outside. Logan hesitated, but felt drawn to the sound, as though it carried a message meant just for him. The musician glanced up and gave a knowing smile, one that suggested both wisdom and a shared understanding of life's hardships. He introduced himself as Jesse, a street musician who had made the city his home, despite its many challenges. His eyes sparkled with a quiet philosophy, the kind that came from years of observing life rather than merely participating in it. Logan found himself speaking freely, sharing his story of ambition, hope, and sudden disappointment. Jesse listened intently, nodding in acknowledgement, occasionally offering thoughtful observations. He spoke of the city's dual nature, its relentless pace, and its hidden kindnesses.
its ability to crush dreams and yet, at times, nurture them in unexpected ways. They spent hours talking, Logan hunched over on a pew, Jesse leaning casually against the organ bench, their conversation flowing effortlessly. Jesse shared stories of people he had met, adventures on the streets, and the lessons he had learned about patience, resilience, and self-discovery. Logan, in turn, spoke of Boulder, of his parents' pride, and of the dream that had brought him to this sprawling city. The music Jesse played seemed to echo Logan's thoughts, weaving a narrative of struggle, hope, and the pursuit of something greater. In that quiet church, amidst shadows and soft light, a bond began to form, one that promised guidance and camaraderie in a world that often felt indifferent. As the night deepened, Jesse offered Logan a proposition. He had a small apartment not far from the church, a modest place that offered shelter and warmth. It was not luxurious, but it was a home, and more importantly, it was a place where Logan could regroup and plan his next steps. The offer came without judgment or expectation, a simple gesture of kindness from someone who understood the challenges of surviving in a city like Chicago. Logan hesitated for only a moment before accepting, relief flooding through him as he realized that he would not have to face the night alone. Walking through the dimly lit streets alongside Jesse, Logan observed the city in a new light. The neon signs and honking horns seemed less intimidating, less chaotic, when shared with someone who could interpret its rhythm. Jesse spoke of the importance of observing, of listening, and of finding small joys amidst adversity. Logan felt a sense of gratitude, realizing that while ambition and talent were vital, human connection could make the difference between despair and hope. By the time they reached Jesse's apartment, Logan felt a cautious optimism he had not experienced since leaving Boulder. Inside the apartment, the space was small but comfortable. A single bed, a worn sofa, and shelves filled with books and music created an atmosphere of warmth and authenticity. Logan sank onto the bed, exhausted, yet at peace. Jesse handed him a cup of tea, and they sat together in companionable silence, the city's distant hum, a reminder of the life waiting beyond the walls. Logan realized that while his journey in Chicago would be difficult, he was not alone. He had found an ally, a friend who would help him navigate the complexities of a new life. That night, as sleep finally claimed him, Logan felt a renewed sense of purpose, ready to face the struggles that lay ahead.
The next morning, Logan awoke to the soft strumming of Jesse's guitar filtering through the apartment. The sun had barely risen, but the city was already stirring with life, a constant reminder that opportunity and challenge often arrived hand in hand. Logan dressed quickly, eager to begin his search for work, yet aware of the obstacles before him. He had no local connections, limited experience beyond his academic achievements, and little understanding of the competitive landscape he now faced. Still, he carried with him a determination that refused to yield to doubt. Logan's first stop was a nearby construction firm, its glass doors reflecting the bustling streets. He handed over his resume with a polite smile, explaining that he had recently graduated in civil engineering and was seeking an entry-level position. The receptionist listened politely, then directed him to submit his information online. Logan left the office with a polite nod, but inside, a growing frustration gnawed at him. Each rejection, each formality felt like a reminder of the city's indifference to newcomers, its preference for experience over potential. As the days passed, Logan's optimism began to waver. He walked the streets of Chicago from one office building to another, each firm a fortress of opportunities seemingly just out of reach. Rejection emails came swiftly, polite but dismissive, citing lack of experience or overqualification for internship programs.
Even the smaller construction companies, the ones he hoped might offer a chance to prove himself, seemed hesitant to take on someone so fresh from college. Logan's confidence began to falter, replaced by a gnawing anxiety that perhaps he had overestimated his readiness for this city. Yet, amidst the frustration, Logan refused to give up. Each rejection was met with renewed effort, each closed door an incentive to find another. He learned to refine his resume, to tailor his cover letters, and to present himself in interviews with calm professionalism. He stayed up late researching firms, memorizing projects, and preparing for questions he hoped would never come. His dedication was unwavering, but the constant struggle weighed heavily, making him question whether talent alone could compete with the connections and experience that others seemed to wield effortlessly. Jesse's presence became a lifeline during these days. He would listen patiently to Logan's frustrations, offering encouragement in the form of both words and music. "The city isn't cruel, Logan," Jesse would say, strumming a gentle chord. "It just has its own rhythm. You need to find yours." Logan found comfort in these moments, realizing that perseverance was as much about mental fortitude as technical skill. Even when hope felt distant, Jesse reminded him that resilience often determined success more than talent alone. One evening, after a particularly discouraging day of interviews and unanswered applications, Logan sat with Jesse on the small apartment balcony, gazing at the city lights. The buildings stretched endlessly, a testament to human ambition and persistence. Logan admitted his fear that he might fail, that perhaps Chicago's harshness would overpower his dreams. Jesse placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Failure is temporary, Logan. It's only permanent if you let it define you. Keep moving, keep learning, and opportunities will find you when you're ready." Logan absorbed these words, feeling a renewed sense of determination that carried him through the night. Despite the constant setbacks, Logan slowly began to learn the city's pace. He observed the ways engineers and construction managers interacted, noted the types of projects that dominated Chicago's skyline, and quietly networked with anyone willing to spare a moment for conversation. Each small interaction, each new piece of knowledge felt like a step forward. Logan understood that the struggle was not just a test of skill, but a crucible shaping his character. By the end of the week, he resolved that no rejection, no matter how discouraging, could derail him. Chicago was vast, challenging, and at times unkind, but it would not defeat him. Logan's days of struggling through endless applications and interviews had begun to take a toll. Each rejection chipped away at his optimism, and the city's cold indifference seemed heavier with every passing hour. One late afternoon, while sitting in a small cafe near his temporary apartment, he spread out his notes and resumes, attempting to revise yet another cover letter. The murmur of conversation around him blended with the clinking of coffee cups, but Logan barely noticed. He was focused entirely on his plans, on the hope that somehow, somewhere, someone might see the potential he carried within him. It was then that Rachel Bennett walked in, a clipboard in hand and an aura of quiet confidence that seemed to command the space she occupied. She was sharp, efficient, and effortlessly approachable, a rare combination that drew Logan's attention immediately. As she moved past his table, she glanced down at the scattered papers and paused. "Tough day?" she asked, her voice kind but curious. Logan looked up, startled, unsure if he should explain or retreat into silence. For reasons he could not explain, he found himself nodding, words spilling out about his search for an engineering position, the city's challenges, and his determination to succeed. Rachel listened intently, her eyes scanning the pages of Logan's resume and notes. She asked probing questions about his projects, his academic background, and his approach to problem solving. Logan felt the rare sensation of being seen.
not just as another applicant, but as someone with ideas, ambition, and potential. There was no judgment, no rushed dismissal. Rachel's manner was patient yet insightful. And by the end of their conversation, Logan felt a glimmer of hope that had been absent for weeks. It was clear that she understood talent when she saw it, and he couldn't help but feel a spark of relief. "I think you have the kind of determination that could thrive here," Rachel said, sliding a business card across the table. "I work as the executive assistant to Mr. Whitman at Whitman Construction. We have trainee positions opening up soon. If you're interested, I can recommend you personally." Logan's heart leapt. The thought of a personal recommendation from someone like Rachel was almost overwhelming, and yet entirely real. He thanked her profusely, promising to follow through with every instruction she provided. For the first time, Logan sensed that his persistence might finally intersect with opportunity. Over the next few days, Logan prepared meticulously. He reviewed past construction projects, studied technical documents, and rehearsed potential interview questions. Rachel guided him through the process, providing tips on how to communicate his ideas effectively and how to demonstrate both competence and eagerness. Logan was struck by her generosity. She offered mentorship without expectation, simply recognizing potential and nurturing it. This guidance became a lifeline, and Logan approached each interview with a newfound confidence that he had not felt since leaving Boulder. When he finally walked into Whitman Construction for his interview, Logan was both nervous and ready. The office hummed with activity, and the polished professionalism of the staff initially intimidated him. But he remembered Rachel's advice: focus on your strengths, speak clearly, and let your passion shine through. As he presented his ideas and answered technical questions, he noticed Mr. Whitman observing him with interest. Logan's diligence and clarity stood out, but it was Rachel's quiet encouragement that gave him the courage to push beyond nervousness and demonstrate his true potential. By the end of the day, Logan received the news he had hoped for. He had been offered a trainee position at the firm. Relief, excitement, and gratitude washed over him in equal measure. He called Jessie immediately, sharing the news with a mixture of disbelief and joy, and later he thanked Rachel in person, humbled by her faith in him. That afternoon, as Logan walked through the streets of Chicago with a sense of purpose, he realized that his struggles had been worth enduring. The city, he understood now, was not merely a place of obstacles. It was a place where determination, guidance, and timing could converge to create opportunity. Rachel and Logan continued to meet occasionally, exchanging ideas and observations about the industry, the city, and life itself. Their conversations were lighthearted yet meaningful, forming a foundation of trust and respect. Logan felt an admiration for Rachel that went beyond professional gratitude. Her insight, intelligence, and kindness sparked a warmth he could not ignore. At the same time, he remained focused on his career, eager to prove that her faith in him was not misplaced. In this chance encounter at a small cafe, Logan's trajectory had shifted, and the first true step of his career, and perhaps of something deeper, had begun.
Logan's first day as a trainee at Whitman Construction was a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The office buzzed with activity, from engineers huddled over blueprints to project managers coordinating schedules and contractors. Logan felt the weight of expectation, both from himself and from those around him. Yet he reminded himself that this was exactly what he had worked for. Years of study and late nights had prepared him to face this moment. He took a deep breath, smoothed the creases in his shirt, and walked through the doors ready to learn, to contribute, and to prove his worth. Rachel greeted him with a warm smile, showing him to his workstation and introducing him to the team. Logan quickly noticed the difference between academic projects and real-world engineering. The stakes were higher, deadlines tighter, and the coordination among colleagues far more intricate than he had imagined. Yet he approached every task with diligence and humility, absorbing every detail like a sponge. Even small tasks like reviewing material specifications or assisting with site surveys were opportunities to learn. Logan's colleagues soon recognized his focus and reliability, noting that he approached each assignment with both curiosity and care. Throughout the day, Rachel stopped by occasionally, offering guidance and advice without being overbearing. She explained office protocols, helped him navigate company software, and occasionally offered insights into client interactions and project priorities. Logan appreciated these small acts of mentorship, understanding that success was not just about technical skill, but also about learning how to work effectively within a team and a corporate structure. Each encounter strengthened his admiration for Rachel as he saw firsthand her intelligence, patience, and ability to balance authority with approachability. Despite the challenges, Logan found moments of joy and camaraderie. He shared quick jokes with fellow trainees, swapped stories about past projects, and even helped brainstorm solutions for minor engineering problems. Each laugh, each nod of acknowledgement reinforced his belief that he belonged here. Rachel's presence, too, added a subtle warmth to his days. She often lingered near his workstation, checking in with a smile or a brief conversation that made the office feel less intimidating. Logan found himself looking forward to these interactions, small yet meaningful connections that brightened the routine of work. One afternoon, Logan was tasked with assisting on a site inspection, observing the progress of a residential development project. The engineers on site explained the importance of safety checks, foundation assessments, and material quality control. Logan asked questions, took careful notes, and even offered suggestions that were met with encouraging nods. By the end of the day, he had contributed more than he expected, feeling the satisfaction that came from practical engagement rather than textbook exercises. He realized that each small success, each detail he mastered, was a building block toward his larger career goals. Over the next few weeks, Logan's competence and dedication became increasingly evident. Supervisors began entrusting him with more responsibility, from drafting minor project proposals to assisting in meetings with contractors. Rachel continued to be a steady presence, offering advice and occasionally a friendly critique, always with encouragement. Their professional relationship blossomed into mutual respect and a quiet friendship. Logan learned to balance humility with initiative, understanding that every day offered both challenges and opportunities for growth. As Logan settled into this routine, he began to reflect on how far he had come. From wandering the streets of Pilsen with no place to stay, to being entrusted with responsibilities at a prestigious construction firm. The contrast was stark, yet Logan recognized that each struggle along the way had prepared him for this moment. He felt a deep gratitude toward Rachel, whose belief in his potential had opened the door to this opportunity. And though work consumed most of his energy, he found himself anticipating their shared moments, the laughter and the quiet encouragement that transformed ordinary days into something meaningful. By the end of the first month, Logan felt a sense of accomplishment and belonging he had not experienced since leaving Boulder. He was learning, growing, and proving himself in ways that went beyond grades or diplomas. More importantly, he was forming connections that nurtured both his professional and personal life. Logan understood that this was only the beginning, that challenges would continue to arise, but for the first time, he faced the future with quiet confidence, knowing that with diligence, mentorship, and integrity, he could build not only bridges in Chicago, but also a meaningful life for himself.
Days turned into weeks as Logan settled into his trainee position, and his professional life gradually began to feel less daunting. Yet it was the moments outside the spreadsheets and site inspections that left the deepest impression on him. Rachel had become a constant presence in his life, not merely as a mentor, but as a confidant. Their conversations often drifted from work-related topics to more personal stories, childhood memories, dreams for the future, and the challenges each had faced to reach this point. Logan discovered in her a patience and understanding that eased the weight of the city's demands. It began subtly at first. A lingering glance as Rachel handed him a folder, a shared laugh over a minor mishap in the office, a gentle teasing about his meticulous nature when reviewing documents.
Logan found himself noticing the way Rachel's smile lit up her features, the spark in her eyes when she discussed her ideas, and the quiet confidence she exuded even in stressful situations. These small moments began to occupy his thoughts outside the office, and he realized that he was drawn to her not only for her guidance, but for her warmth and kindness. Rachel, too, seemed to respond to Logan's presence in ways she hadn't anticipated. She appreciated his diligence and the respect he showed toward both her and his colleagues, but more than that, she was moved by his humility and sincerity. Unlike the other young professionals she occasionally encountered, Logan's ambition did not come across as arrogance. Instead, it was tempered by empathy and a genuine desire to learn. Over lunch breaks and late evenings in the office, their conversations grew longer, more personal, and increasingly filled with shared humor and quiet understanding. One rainy afternoon, Logan accompanied Rachel to a meeting across town. The streets were slick with rain, the city reflected in puddles shimmering with neon lights. Walking under a shared umbrella, they laughed over trivial inconveniences like slipping on wet sidewalks or dodging taxis, and Logan realized how effortless it felt to be with her. There was no pretense, no pressure to impress, just two people navigating a city together, finding joy in shared experiences. The simplicity of it contrasted sharply with the chaos of their surroundings, making Logan feel a calm he hadn't known he was missing. As days passed, their support for each other extended beyond personal comfort into professional encouragement. Logan sought Rachel's advice on complex project details, and she in turn relied on his fresh perspective when reviewing proposals. They celebrated each minor achievement, from a successfully approved plan to a compliment from a supervisor. The mutual respect and trust that developed between them naturally evolved into emotional intimacy. Logan began to notice the subtle ways his heart reacted to Rachel's presence, the quickened pulse when she entered a room, the warmth that spread when she offered reassurance during challenging tasks. One evening, after a long day at the office, they walked together to a nearby cafe to unwind. The conversation flowed easily, moving from lighthearted topics to deeper reflections on their ambitions, fears, and the lives they hoped to build. Logan was struck by the quiet strength Rachel carried, and she, in turn, was moved by his earnestness and dedication. As they shared a dessert and laughed over a clumsy spill of coffee, the tension of unspoken feelings began to soften, replaced by a mutual awareness that their connection was evolving into something more profound. It wasn't a dramatic confession or a sudden realization, but rather a steady unfolding of emotions. Logan found himself thinking about Rachel outside the office, imagining moments together that extended beyond work. Rachel noticed small gestures of care, his willingness to listen, his quiet support, and the thoughtfulness he displayed in small acts. These signs deepened her feelings, though neither rushed to name them. Their bond, built on trust, respect, and shared experiences, formed a foundation strong enough to sustain the beginning of a quiet, tender romance, a connection that promised to grow as they navigated both personal and professional challenges.
Chicago's glittering nights seemed endless, each one more vibrant than the last, filled with the hum of luxury cars, laughter spilling from exclusive clubs, and the clinking of crystal glasses. Madison Whitman's attention became a constant presence in Logan's life, her charm and sophistication impossible to ignore. She invited him to lavish parties, private rooftop gatherings, and high-profile charity events, all meticulously curated to dazzle and impress. Logan, polite and intrigued, found himself swept into this glamorous world, marveling at the elegance, the wealth, and the influence that Madison effortlessly wielded. It was intoxicating, yet beneath the sparkle, he remained aware of the subtle danger it posed to his emotional stability. Madison's pursuit was relentless, but never crude. She complimented Logan on his work, teased him gently, and shared glimpses of her life that felt both alluring and unattainable. She spoke of international travel, elite connections, and the endless opportunities that awaited those who could navigate Chicago's upper echelons. Logan, while flattered by the attention, found himself conflicted. The thrill of Madison's world was undeniable, yet every time he looked toward her, he could not ignore the quiet, steadfast presence of Rachel, the woman who had guided him, encouraged him, and believed in his potential long before Madison had even noticed his existence. As weeks passed, Logan noticed that Madison's intensity shifted subtly. She was glamorous, witty, and captivating, but she began to show signs of frustration when Logan remained emotionally distant. He was polite, respectful, and attentive, but he never crossed the line into romance. Madison's invitations, once brimming with excitement and seduction, started to carry a hint of urgency, as though she hoped to sway his heart before he became irrevocably attached to Rachel. Despite the subtle pressure, Logan's loyalty remained unshaken. He recognized that his connection with Rachel was built on trust, shared experiences, and mutual respect, a foundation far stronger than the allure of wealth and social standing. Madison, perceptive as she was, slowly began to understand that she could not compete with Rachel's authenticity. Logan's eyes, when they softened with warmth, were reserved for someone else. His laughter, his focus, and his quiet attentiveness always gravitated toward Rachel, and this realization struck Madison with an unexpected sting. She had believed her world of luxury and influence could attract anyone, that her charm could turn even the most principled man. But Logan's devotion to Rachel revealed a truth she could not ignore. Love and loyalty were not commodities to be bought or impressed with extravagance. They were choices made from the heart. Despite this understanding, Madison did not retreat entirely. She maintained a cordial and professional demeanor around Logan, attending events and interacting with him as if nothing had changed. Yet the subtle tension between them was palpable, marked by fleeting glances, quiet hesitations, and unspoken awareness of boundaries. Logan, for his part, navigated these interactions with careful diplomacy. He appreciated Madison's generosity in including him in her world, but never allowed it to compromise his principles or his feelings for Rachel. Every decision, every encounter reinforced his commitment to the woman who had truly shaped his life. Rachel, meanwhile, remained unaware of the extent of Madison's attention. Logan's focus on his work and their growing friendship shielded her from any suspicion. Yet Logan could feel the contrast more keenly than ever, the difference between fleeting temptation and enduring connection. Madison's world was dazzling, exciting, and glamorous, but Rachel's presence offered stability, trust, and a shared understanding of dreams and aspirations. Logan recognized that his choices were not merely about resisting temptation. They were about affirming the values and relationships that defined him. By the end of the season, Madison quietly accepted the truth she had resisted for so long. Logan's heart and loyalty were unwavering, and while she may have been intrigued by the challenge, she could not change what he felt for Rachel. The realization brought a mixture of resignation and admiration. She had glimpsed something rare in Logan's character, a devotion that could not be swayed by wealth, glamour, or social influence. For Logan, the chapter of temptation had provided clarity. The allure of high society had been tempting, but love, integrity, and loyalty had guided him back to what truly mattered, reinforcing the quiet power of connection built on respect, trust, and shared experience.
The morning began like any other, the hum of construction activity filling Logan's mind with a sense of purpose and routine. He oversaw one of the firm's most ambitious projects yet, a bridge that would connect two of Chicago's bustling districts. Plans had been drawn meticulously, schedules coordinated with contractors, and materials carefully inspected. Logan had poured countless hours into the project, double-checking measurements, verifying engineering calculations, and supervising every stage with diligence. Yet he was unaware that some of his supposed allies were quietly undermining his work, their motives hidden behind smiles and handshakes. The first sign of trouble came in the form of whispered warnings from a colleague. hints that not all the materials had been delivered according to specifications. Logan, initially hesitant to believe that sabotage could occur within his team, investigated immediately. Every inspection he performed revealed inconsistencies that did not align with his plans. Panic crept into his thoughts, but he remained methodical, determined to uncover the source of the problem. The sense of betrayal weighed heavily as the realization sank in. Someone he trusted, or at least considered a professional peer, had deliberately endangered the project, putting his reputation and career at risk. The collapse itself was sudden and devastating. On a crisp morning, as workers performed final tests and the bridge was prepared for a public inspection, a structural failure caused a section of the bridge to give way. The sound of cracking metal and snapping concrete echoed through the site, accompanied by screams and chaos. Logan rushed to the scene, heart pounding, to witness the aftermath. Fortunately, no one was seriously injured, but the damage to both the structure and his professional reputation was immediate and severe. The media quickly picked up the story, portraying Logan as the man responsible for the disaster, despite the sabotage being hidden beneath layers of deception. Whitman Construction's office was flooded with calls, questions, and accusations. Logan found himself summoned to meetings with Mr. Whitman, where the firm's senior staff debated blame and potential consequences. The pressure was immense, the scrutiny unrelenting. Colleagues whispered behind his back, some offering sympathy, while others quietly distanced themselves, unwilling to be associated with scandal. Logan's mind raced, balancing the need to protect the firm's interests with the necessity of defending his own integrity. Each conversation, each accusation was a stark reminder of the fragility of reputation and the precariousness of trust in a high-stakes professional environment. Jesse, ever a steady presence, provided Logan with counsel and perspective. "The city will judge quickly," he said, strumming his guitar late at night in Logan's apartment. "But truth has its way of revealing itself. You need to stay focused, gather your evidence, and don't let panic guide your decisions." Logan followed this advice, meticulously documenting every detail, reviewing communication logs, and tracing the chain of events that had led to the collapse. It became clear that professional jealousy and sabotage were at play, though proving it would require patience, tact, and an unwavering commitment to integrity. Meanwhile, Rachel became Logan's anchor. She provided both emotional support and practical guidance, helping him organize reports, verify calculations, and strategize meetings with senior management. Logan relied on her judgment, finding comfort in her calm presence amidst the storm of scrutiny. Their bond, forged over months of shared work and personal connection, became a source of strength. Rachel reminded him that mistakes could be distinguished from malice, and that the truth, though delayed, had a way of emerging, particularly when confronted with careful evidence and steadfast honesty. The scandal, while terrifying, also tested Logan's resolve and character. He faced moments of despair, where public opinion, the firm's internal politics, and personal doubts seemed insurmountable. Yet he also discovered resilience he didn't know he possessed. Each day required courage to stand by his principles, courage to confront betrayal, and courage to continue believing in his skills despite overwhelming adversity.
The experience reinforced Logan's understanding that professional success was never guaranteed, but integrity and persistence could endure even the harshest trials. By the end of the month, preliminary investigations began to reveal discrepancies that pointed to sabotage rather than negligence. While the bridge's collapse had caused immediate damage to Logan's reputation, the careful documentation and Rachel's unwavering support laid the groundwork for vindication. Logan realized that the ordeal had not only tested his abilities as an engineer, but had also reinforced the value of loyalty, trust, and diligence. Even amidst public scrutiny and professional peril, he understood that navigating the storm with integrity would ultimately define him far more than the collapse itself. After the chaos of the bridge collapse and the storm of accusations, Logan spent long hours in silence, replaying the events in his mind. The city seemed different now, not the vibrant, opportunity-filled metropolis he had imagined, but a maze of expectations, envy, and hidden agendas. The glamour of high-profile events and social prestige, once so alluring, now appeared hollow. Logan could not ignore the exhaustion etched into his bones, or the constant tension that had accompanied his every interaction with Madison and her world of luxury. For the first time, he questioned the value of ambition and wealth when it came at the cost of peace and authenticity. In the quiet moments at Jesse's apartment, Logan began to reflect deeply on the choices he had made and the paths he had considered. The allure of Madison's world, her invitations to elite parties, the intoxicating mix of power and privilege now seemed superficial compared to the steady, genuine connections he had built with Rachel and the people of Pilsen. He realized that ambition alone, without guiding principles and integrity, could lead not to fulfillment, but to emptiness. The collapse of the bridge had been a harsh reminder that even professional success could crumble when the wrong values dictated decisions. Rachel's quiet presence had always been a source of strength, but Logan now saw it with renewed clarity. Her support had never been conditional on status, wealth, or public acclaim. She had guided him with patience, celebrated his successes, and offered comfort when he doubted himself. The contrast between Rachel's authenticity and Madison's glamour crystallized in his mind. One offered substance, connection, and trust, while the other, though dazzling, demanded compromise and attention at the expense of the heart. Logan felt a profound realization settle within him. True fulfillment came not from the applause of the city or the glittering invitations he received, but from the bonds he nurtured and the integrity he upheld. Walking through the streets of Chicago alone one evening, Logan observed the city in a new light. The skyscrapers and neon lights that had once inspired awe now felt imposing and impersonal. He noticed the hurried commuters, the endless social networking, and the subtle competitiveness in every conversation. The glamour he had once sought now seemed performative, and the friendships it offered were often transactional. Logan reflected on his own journey, from the uncertainty of his arrival in Pilsen to the struggle for employment, to the collapse and scandal, and realized that each trial had refined his understanding of what truly mattered. The bridge collapse, though initially devastating, became a turning point in Logan's introspection. He understood that professional ambition without a moral compass could lead to ruin, while loyalty, diligence, and love provided a foundation that could withstand even the harshest storms. Logan thought of Jesse's words about rhythm and patience, of Rachel's encouragement, and of the unwavering support of those who had believed in him long before the city's elite took notice. In this reflection, he found clarity. His aspirations must align with his values, and the pursuit of prestige could never replace the fulfillment of integrity and authentic connection. Madison's allure, once so captivating, no longer held sway over Logan. He realized that his enjoyment of her attention had been fleeting, an external validation that paled in comparison to the joy he felt in Rachel's company. The lessons of loyalty, patience, and discernment had reshaped his understanding of desire and temptation. Logan's heart, previously divided by ambition and curiosity, now recognized its true compass. The collapse, the sabotage, and the social pressure had not defeated him. They had illumined the path he was meant to follow. With each passing day, Logan's determination strengthened to align his life with the values that mattered most: love, integrity, and simplicity. By the end of this period of reflection, Logan felt a quiet resolve settle within him. The city's opulence, the glamour of Madison's world, and the endless pursuit of recognition no longer tempted him. Instead, he felt drawn to the authenticity of his early experiences in Pilsen, the friendship of Jesse, and the unwavering support of Rachel. Logan recognized that his journey was not merely about career success or social climbing. It was about finding a life of purpose, meaning, and connection. The realization was both liberating and grounding, providing him with the clarity to make choices that honored both his heart and his principles.
Logan's decision to step away from the glamorous world of Madison and the city's high society was not impulsive, but deliberate. He resolved to leave behind the endless invitations, the dazzling parties, and the seductive allure of wealth that had, for a moment, threatened to sway him from his true path. As he packed the few belongings that had accompanied him since Boulder, Logan reflected on the lessons learned, the fragility of reputation, the consequences of misplaced trust, and the immeasurable value of integrity. For the first time, he felt the serenity that comes from aligning actions with convictions. Saying goodbye to Madison was complicated yet necessary. Logan approached the conversation with honesty and respect, acknowledging her charm and the excitement her world had offered, while making it clear that his heart and focus were elsewhere. Madison listened, her expression a mixture of disappointment and reluctant acceptance. She understood, finally, that Logan's loyalty was unshakable and that no amount of glamour or social influence could divert him from the path he had chosen. The encounter, though brief, was cathartic, allowing both to acknowledge reality and move forward without bitterness. Returning to Pilsen felt like coming home in more ways than one. The modest apartment he had first shared with Jesse, the streets he had walked with uncertainty, and the community he had slowly grown to appreciate now welcomed him with a sense of belonging. The city's relentless pace faded in contrast to the familiar rhythm of the neighborhood. Logan was struck by how much he had changed, how trials, failures, and reflections had refined not only his professional ambitions, but also his understanding of love, friendship, and personal values. Jesse greeted him with a knowing smile, noticing the difference in Logan's demeanor immediately. The younger man carried himself with a calm confidence, a quiet strength that spoke of lessons learned through adversity. Their conversations resumed, now tinged with reflection on Logan's journey and the choices that had shaped him. Jesse's music provided a comforting backdrop, the notes weaving through stories of resilience, patience, and rediscovery. Logan felt gratitude for this friendship, recognizing that guidance and companionship had been vital in navigating the turbulent path from ambition to understanding. Rachel, too, remained central to Logan's sense of purpose and fulfillment. He found her waiting one evening, as she often did after work, at the corner where their paths had first intersected professionally. Seeing her reminded him of everything that had guided him: patience, mentorship, authenticity, and the quiet power of love built on trust. Logan approached her, a mixture of relief and joy in his chest. Their eyes met, and in that instant, all the confusion, temptation, and turmoil melted away, replaced by the clarity of shared understanding and affection. The neighborhood, with its familiar streets and modest charm, felt more vibrant than ever. Logan observed children playing, neighbors greeting each other, and the sense of community he had initially overlooked amidst the rush of ambition. Here, simplicity was not a limitation, but a canvas for meaningful living. Logan realized that he did not need prestige or high society validation to feel accomplished. The relationships he nurtured, the integrity he maintained, and the love he shared provided a richness far beyond material wealth or societal recognition. By choosing to walk away, Logan reclaimed his life on his own terms. The glamour of Madison's world, the allure of recognition, and the temptation of social climbing no longer defined him. Instead, Logan embraced the values he had fought to uphold: integrity, loyalty, love, and authenticity. Each step back into Pilsen reinforced the lesson that happiness was not measured by status or applause, but by the meaningful connections and choices that reflected one's true self. In this quiet, deliberate walkaway, Logan found peace, purpose, and a renewed sense of hope. The chapter of walking away also marked the beginning of new beginnings. Logan felt a sense of anticipation for the life he could now shape alongside Rachel, supported by Jesse and grounded in the community he had come to cherish. There was work to be done, projects to manage, and dreams to pursue, but now they were aligned with values, not vanity. Logan had discovered that love and integrity were far more enduring than ambition or glamour. And with that understanding, he stepped confidently into a life of simplicity, purpose, and fulfillment.
Returning to Pilsen felt like stepping into a different rhythm of life, one Logan had almost forgotten amidst the frenzy of Chicago's high society. The streets, lined with modest row houses and small local shops, exuded a sense of community that contrasted sharply with the polished, impersonal city he had left behind. Neighbors greeted each other with warm smiles and familiar nods, a welcome far more genuine than the applause of gala events. For Logan, this slower pace of life offered a clarity and peace he hadn't realized he needed. It was here, among familiar faces and unhurried days, that he began to feel truly at home again. Jesse, ever the philosophical street musician, welcomed Logan with an infectious grin and a guitar resting comfortably against his shoulder. The two settled back into their old routine, music, long conversations, and laughter echoing through the small apartment. Logan found solace in Jesse's easygoing perspective, which had once been a source of guidance in the uncertainty of his arrival in Chicago. Now, Jesse's presence reminded him of the importance of grounding oneself in genuine relationships, of valuing patience, and of finding contentment in simplicity rather than spectacle. Neighbors and friends often asked about Logan's return, curious about the choices he had made and the life he had left behind. Some marveled at the courage it took to walk away from the city's glittering opportunities, while others simply welcomed him back with heartfelt curiosity. Logan answered with humility, careful not to dwell on the scandal or the allure of Madison's world. Instead, he spoke of lessons learned, of discovering the value of integrity, and of the richness that comes from authentic connections. Slowly, Logan began to see the pride in people's eyes, not for what he had achieved in terms of status, but for what he had chosen in terms of character. Work in Pilsen, though simpler than the high-profile projects of the city, brought Logan satisfaction in ways he had not expected. He helped coordinate local construction efforts, assisted neighbors with small renovations, and lent his expertise to community projects. Each task reminded him of the tangible impact he could have when guided by care and consideration rather than ambition or recognition. Logan began to understand that fulfillment was not measured by applause or accolades, but by the quiet, meaningful contributions one made to the lives of others. As the days passed, Logan found time to reflect on the journey that had brought him back to this place. The hustle of Chicago, the allure of Madison, and the chaos of professional sabotage now seemed like distant lessons rather than lingering regrets. Logan appreciated that he had experienced those challenges, for they had clarified his values and strengthened his resolve. In their aftermath, he recognized the depth of his loyalty to Rachel, the grounding influence of Jesse, and the joy that came from a life led with intention and authenticity. Evenings in Pilsen offered simple pleasures. Watching the sunset from his modest balcony, listening to Jesse play his guitar, and walking through the neighborhood streets with a renewed appreciation for everyday beauty. Logan found that he could breathe deeply here, that each moment carried weight, not for its extravagance, but for its sincerity. Conversations with locals, shared laughter, and small acts of kindness brought him a sense of fulfillment that the high society circles of Chicago had never offered. It was in these quiet, grounded experiences that Logan rediscovered his sense of purpose. Logan's connection to the community also reinforced his understanding of friendship and loyalty. Jesse remained a constant reminder of the power of patience, perspective, and joy, while neighbors and acquaintances illustrated the depth of human connection that did not require status or wealth. Through each interaction, Logan felt gratitude for the lessons learned, for the struggles that had shaped him, and for the opportunities to apply his skills in ways that genuinely mattered. The streets of Pilsen, once a temporary stop, had become the setting for Logan's true home and the foundation for the life he wished to build. As the chapter of returning home unfolded, Logan embraced the richness of simplicity. He learned to celebrate the small victories,
to value relationships over recognition, and to find meaning in work that touched lives rather than merely elevated status. Each day reinforced the realization that the choices he had made, stepping away from glamour, refusing temptation, and prioritizing integrity, had led him not into loss, but into a life filled with purpose, peace, and genuine contentment.
Logan's presence in Pilsen became a quiet but powerful affirmation that happiness could be found not in opulence, but in truth, love, and community.
Even amidst the contentment of life back in Pilsen, Logan's thoughts often wandered toward Rachel. He remembered the subtle warmth of her laughter, the guidance she had offered in the office, and the quiet strength that had always been a steady presence in his life. Jesse noticed the way Logan's eyes lingered on the small details that reminded him of her, the moments of wistful reflection when he spoke of connection and loyalty. With a knowing smile, Jesse understood that Logan's heart had always belonged to Rachel, even before he fully admitted it to himself. One evening, Jesse suggested they take a walk through the familiar streets of Pilsen, guitar slung over his back and a playful glint in his eye. "You've been thinking about her a lot, haven't you?" Jesse asked casually, glancing at Logan. Logan hesitated, caught off guard by the straightforwardness of the observation, but nodded. Jesse chuckled, strumming a soft chord as if punctuating the moment. "Then it's time," he said quietly. "Sometimes we just need a little nudge to follow what we already know in our hearts." Jesse's words lingered with Logan long after their walk. The neighborhood, bathed in the warm glow of streetlights, seemed to encourage reflection. Logan realized that he had been waiting for permission, not from anyone else, but from himself, to acknowledge what he had felt all along. Rachel had been his anchor, his guide, and the source of genuine affection, and yet he had allowed the distractions of ambition and temptation to occupy his mind. Jesse's subtle encouragement was all he needed to see that the path forward was clear. The following days were filled with quiet preparation. Logan revisited the moments that had shaped his relationship with Rachel, the shared laughter in the office, the mentoring sessions, the long conversations that bridged both work and life. Each memory reinforced the certainty of his feelings. Logan understood that he could no longer remain in hesitation or uncertainty. The clarity he had gained from the trials in Chicago, combined with Jesse's gentle nudge, made the decision inevitable. He had to reunite with Rachel, not just in thought, but in presence. Jesse orchestrated a simple but meaningful plan. Knowing Logan's tendencies toward hesitation, he provided subtle cues and guidance, ensuring that the moment of reunion would feel natural, heartfelt, and genuine. Logan, initially nervous, found reassurance in Jesse's calm demeanor and steady confidence. The realization that he had always belonged to Rachel gave him courage, and the lingering doubts, once fueled by ambition and temptation, now faded under the certainty of love and loyalty. On the day of the reunion, Logan found himself walking through familiar streets with an uncharacteristic sense of purpose. Jesse accompanied him, smiling knowingly, occasionally strumming a gentle chord on his guitar. The rhythm of the city, once overwhelming, now seemed to harmonize with Logan's heartbeat. Every step brought him closer to the realization that the woman who had always held his heart was waiting, just as she had always been. The simplicity of the moment, the calm streets, the soft light, and Jesse's encouragement made the anticipation feel almost sacred. Finally, as they turned a familiar corner, Logan saw Rachel standing there, waiting with a smile that seemed to radiate warmth and recognition. Time seemed to slow, each detail sharp in his mind. The way her hair caught the sunlight, the subtle curve of her smile, and the steady confidence in her gaze. Logan felt the culmination of his journey, the trials, the temptations, the betrayals, and the reflections coalesce into a single undeniable truth. Rachel had always been his home, and he had always belonged to her. Jesse stepped back, strumming a soft final chord on his guitar, and whispered, "Turn." Logan obeyed instinctively, walking toward Rachel with a certainty that had been tempered by months of trials and reflection. There was no hesitation, no second guessing. The city, the glamour, and the ambition that had once clouded his heart were gone. In their place stood clarity, loyalty,
and love. Logan's journey had led him back not only to Rachel, but to himself, the values, relationships, and simplicity that truly defined him. As he reached her, Rachel's smile deepened, and the world around them seemed to settle into quiet perfection. Logan realized that the reunion was more than a moment. It was the culmination of lessons learned, challenges overcome, and the unwavering truth of his heart. Jesse, with a final knowing glance, watched the two embrace, satisfied that his quiet guidance had helped restore what had always been destined. Logan's homecoming was complete, not just in Pilsen, but in the arms of the woman who had always been his true north.
The streets of Pilsen were bathed in the golden glow of late afternoon sunlight, a calm that contrasted sharply with the turbulence Logan had endured in Chicago. The city's noise, its relentless pace, and its relentless chase for prestige and glamour now seemed distant memories, replaced by the comforting hum of neighborhood life. Logan's heart raced not with anxiety or ambition, but with anticipation, a quiet excitement rooted in the certainty that he was finally returning to the one person who had anchored him through every storm. Each step he took felt deliberate, carrying him closer to the moment he had been preparing for in thought, reflection, and longing. As Logan approached the familiar corner where Rachel often waited after work, a mixture of nerves and joy tightened in his chest. He remembered the early days in the office, the quiet conversations that had gradually unfolded into shared laughter, camaraderie, and mutual respect. Those moments, seemingly small at the time, now resonated as the foundation of a bond that had withstood temptation, betrayal, and adversity. Logan realized that it was not merely the passage of time or shared work that had created this connection, but the authenticity, loyalty, and trust that had flourished quietly in the spaces between words and gestures. There she was, Rachel, standing with her characteristic calm and a smile that seemed to radiate warmth and familiarity. Her presence was both grounding and exhilarating, a reminder of all the steady support, encouragement, and subtle guidance she had offered him when he needed it most. Logan's heart tightened with emotion as he observed her, the sunlight catching in her eyes and highlighting the quiet strength that had drawn him in from the very beginning. Every hesitation, every moment of doubt he had faced now melted away, replaced by an unwavering certainty. This was the person with whom he belonged, the one whose love and integrity mirrored his own. Jesse, ever perceptive, stepped back slightly, guitar slung casually over his shoulder, allowing the moment to unfold without interruption. "Turn," he whispered softly, a knowing smile playing on his lips. Logan's legs moved as if on instinct, guided by a combination of courage, longing, and clarity. The city had tested him with its glimmering temptations, professional betrayals, and social pressures. Yet here he was, stepping forward with the knowledge that the path he had chosen, the path of authenticity and loyalty, was the one that had always led him home. As Logan closed the distance between them, memories flooded his mind. The moments of quiet mentorship with Rachel, the shared victories in the office, the late evenings when they had talked about dreams and aspirations, and the subtle hints of affection that had grown quietly over time. All of it culminated in this instant, a meeting of eyes, a recognition of shared devotion, and an unspoken acknowledgement that their journey, with all its trials, had strengthened rather than diminished their bond. Logan reached out, and Rachel's arms opened in a gesture that was at once welcoming, tender, and profoundly affirming. The embrace was more than physical. It carried the weight of everything they had endured. Logan felt the steady warmth of Rachel against him, a reassurance that love, when grounded in integrity and trust, could withstand even the harshest tests. In that moment, all the doubts, temptations, and uncertainties dissolved, replaced by a quiet, enduring joy.
Logan's hands rested gently on her shoulders, and he could feel the same steadiness and affection returning from her, as if confirming that every step of his journey had been leading to this reunion. Pulling back slightly, Logan met Rachel's gaze, and they smiled at each other, a mixture of relief, happiness, and deep connection reflected in their eyes. Words were unnecessary. The history they shared, the challenges they had overcome, and the affection that had grown in quiet moments communicated everything. Logan realized that ambition, wealth, and social glamour had their appeal, but none of them could match the profound satisfaction of returning to a love that was genuine, unwavering, and earned through trust and loyalty. This embrace symbolized the triumph of integrity over temptation, of true connection over superficial allure. As they walked together through the familiar streets, Logan felt the rhythm of life in Pilsen harmonizing with the newfound clarity in his heart. The laughter of children, the greetings of neighbors, and the soft hum of everyday activities surrounded them, providing a backdrop of simplicity and authenticity. Logan understood now that fulfillment was not measured in accolades, invitations to elite gatherings, or the admiration of strangers. It was found in shared experiences, mutual support, and the unwavering presence of someone who truly understands and values you. Rachel's hand in his, warm and steady, was a reminder of that enduring truth. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, echoing the ease of their earlier days in the office, but now enriched with the depth of experience and the trials they had endured apart. They spoke of the challenges Logan had faced, of the temptations and pressures of the city, and of the clarity he had gained in choosing to walk away. Rachel shared in his reflections, offering her perspective and support, reinforcing the trust that had always defined their relationship. Each word, each glance, and each laugh was a reinforcement of their bond, a testament to the resilience and patience that had guided them to this moment.
By the time they reached Logan's modest apartment, the city around them seemed to fade into background noise, irrelevant compared to the profound connection they shared. Logan realized that the journey, the struggles, the temptations, the betrayals, and the reflections had not been obstacles, but essential experiences that had prepared him for this reunion. He had learned the value of patience, the importance of loyalty, and the enduring power of love grounded in honesty and integrity. Rachel's presence reminded him that life's most meaningful rewards are often earned through perseverance and guided by the heart. As the evening settled over Pilsen, Logan and Rachel stood together, gazing out at the neighborhood that had become a symbol of home, authenticity, and community. The golden light of sunset bathed them in warmth, and for a moment, the world seemed perfectly still. Logan felt a sense of completeness, a quiet joy that surpassed anything he had experienced in Chicago's high society. Here, in the embrace of Rachel, with the guidance of Jesse's wisdom echoing in the background, he understood that the trials he had faced were not detours, but the path itself, leading him to the love and life he had been seeking all along. The story of Logan and Rachel closed not with fanfare or public recognition, but with a profound sense of fulfillment, the quiet triumph of love and integrity over ambition and glamour. Logan had returned to the place, people, and heart that truly mattered, enriched by the experiences that had tested and strengthened him. Their journey was complete, yet it also marked the beginning of a new chapter, one built on trust, shared values, and the deep, enduring connection that only genuine love can provide. In each other's arms, Logan and Rachel found not just reunion, but home, proving that the heart's true desires, when guided by integrity and loyalty, always lead to the right destination.